Welcome to the Pediatric Playbook, where we guide growth in children and balance in ourselves. I'm Amanda, a pediatric occupational therapist, here to share stories, strategies, and insights to support parents, therapists, teachers, and caregivers as we navigate the ever-evolving world of child development together. From tackling potty training and sensory needs to celebrating milestones, this podcast is your go-to resource for practical advice, inspiring stories, and honest conversations. Each week, we'll explore topics that matter to you, whether you're a parent looking for answers or a pediatric OT, SLP, PT, or educator searching for fresh perspectives. I'll also sit down with other therapists and professionals to dive into their unique journeys and the lessons they've learned along the way. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's dive into this journey together. Whether you're here for personal growth, professional insights, or a little bit of both, I am so glad you're here. Welcome back to the Pediatric Playbook. Today, I'm joined by someone really special, one of my past clients and now a dear friend, Katie. We first connected when she was navigating a tough journey with her daughter's constipation and potty training challenges. Over time, we tackled everything from bathroom battles to sleep regressions with her other child. And yes, she even shared a glass of wine or two while I earned my nickname as the Poop Doctor. Today, we're diving deep into that journey, including some of the more challenging moments, like the discussions around enema and suppository use and all of that jazz. I can't wait to share Katie's story and the honest insights she has for all of the parents out there. Let's dive in. Katie, I just wanted to say how happy I am to be chatting with you today, just like old times. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your family?
Yes, so I'm Katie, and I have two girls. We have two girls, my husband and I. Our oldest is Cora, so she's 6 now, and then we have another little girl, Elsie, who is about to turn 2 tomorrow. And when I met you, had just had Elsie, so I had Cora, who was in the trenches of potty training issues, and then had a newborn. And while I thought that my plan was, this is great, we have this huge age gap and we're going to have 5-year-old out of diapers or 4-year-old out of diapers, it's going to be a whole independent child with a newborn, really backfired. And so that's where you came in and saved us.
Yeah, and that was back in 2023, which was crazy. We were catching up before we got on here, and I was like,
Yeah,
I can't believe it's been so long. We're talking about her in kindergarten now,
I
and
know.
like, you guys have
Time
come.
flies.
It really does. Okay, so take
Yes.
us back. Where were you when you first reached out to me? Like, what was happening in your home that made you say, okay, I think we like really need some help here?
Yeah, so we started potty training. So Cora turned 3, and then she was in preschool 3 days a week. So it was hard to start potty training prior because then it was like our schedule was inconsistent with in school, out of school. It's like every other day, right? So when she turned 3, like a week or two after spring break happened, so we knew we were going to be home for a full week. And so we tackled potty training. It went great. I think the first time she did anything on the toilet was she actually pooped. And so I just assumed this was great and it was easy. She went back to school, was potty trained, no issues. And then we fast forward to when I met you. Um, it just took a really bad turn. So she was intentionally holding her poop. The pee was never an issue. But starting the threes class, so the next school year, she was in panties, everything was fine, but she had been withholding her poop when she knew she was going to have a pull up on. But then she withheld for so long that it became a much bigger issue, and it was constipation, and then it was constantly having accidents in her panties where she was like holding it in and then having little bitty accidents in her panties. And so we actually had, because she was in school, we had to go back for the sake of the teacher because she was pooping in her pants all day long. We had to go back to diapers for the sake of the teacher because she couldn't keep dealing with this. And so then we thought, okay, you know what? Maybe it wasn't a right time. We're going to wait till summer. And the first 2 weeks of summer we tried, and I had Elsie, and it was so terrible there were so many tears and frustration. And then I had found you on TikTok, I think. And I told my husband, I was like, this is going to be a scam. Like, I'm just going to email her and then I don't know, maybe it'll work. And you emailed back so fast. And I was like, I think this is real. Like, this is a real person. And she said she'd help us. Like, let's just, Eric was like, whatever it takes, let's do it. Like, we can't keep doing this. So, we were in a very, very bad spot when we met you.
Well, I know, and I'm so happy that you guys found me because we built such like a friendship from it
I
too, like
know.
calls that we like looked forward to. And you were like
Yes.
the client, especially that I was like, okay, this is going to be like good and helpful. And I know we're going to make strides every week. So there was so much going on at that time for you. And I just wanted
Yes.
to be someone that you can lean on. And I know you kind of talked about how, you guys were pretty much P trained at the time, but then because of everything going on at school and that being hard for everybody to handle, did she make a full regression then with P? Kind of tell us about that. Like, did you guys just stop putting her on the toilet altogether?
Yes, because then at that point, like we would try on like off days, be in panties, but then the poop was like such an issue that like her body was telling her let it out and
Mm-hmm.
she was holding it in. So it was constant, a little bit coming out and her saying like holding it in, holding it in. So then we're changing panties, but peeing, she would pee on the toilet, no problem.
Yep.
Um,
Do we know
which
what,
later,
like thinking back on it, do you know what was it that led to her wanting to withhold? Had she ever dealt with constipation prior to you guys initially
no,
meeting? Was
like
it
that, it was weird that like as a baby we would joke that we could almost put a time of the day on the calendar where we knew she was going to poop. She was so regular. We never had like her whole baby years, we never had a diaper rash, we never had a constipation problem, diarrhea, nothing. Like it was so scheduled that it was like, oh, Cora's going to poop in the next hour, and she would. But then it just like with working with you, we later found out how much sensory
Mhm.
issues she was having that I, as the parent, never realized correlated or were connected in any way whatsoever. And so I think it was just a fear overall and a major sensory thing. Whereas, like, everyone says, oh, she'll figure it out. Or like, you make her poop and it wasn't that easy. You assume
Yeah.
that it will be that easy, but it was not at all.
Well, yeah. And I remember you also sharing how challenging it was working with the medical team at first when you were obviously
Yes.
extremely concerned with what was going on because things were so normal up to that point. So what
Yes.
were some of those like frustrations that you guys were encountering when you're trying to get the support you needed from your medical team?
So I remember, like, so I said she turned 3, spring break happened, potty training, like, perfect, we're great, we think we're fine. She was still wearing pull-ups in nap time and sleep time because she still took super long naps and would still sleep 12 hours at night, so she was obviously still peeing at that time. So she was in pull-ups. So it was, I think, like a month or month and a half after we started potty training, she got sick. She
Mhm.
threw up. She had eaten and threw up, and we were like, what is happening? And then we had taken her to the doctor, and they had said, okay, well, when was the last time she, pooped or whatever? And they took a x-ray and they were like, she is so backed up. And that kind of was like, we went in again after that for the same issue, and they were like, yeah, she needs to poop bad.
Did
So
they
it
do
had
any
only,
kind of enema or anything at the doctors for you guys?
no, they just said give her Miralax basically. I I'm pretty sure we gave her a suppository to just like, but then it happened again and she was withholding again. And I think it had only been like a month or two, not even 2 months, that we had started potty training, and they said this seems to be a chronic issue. You need to go see a GI specialist. And I'm like, well, this only started since we started potty training. Like I don't think that it's a like some sort of medical condition because she'd been pooping normal all the way up until this point. So it
Yeah.
seemed a little dramatic, honestly. And then it was give her Miralax. And then, you research about what Miralax does. And then it's like, I don't know that that's the right answer either. Like there has to be something else. And there was nothing else.
Yeah. And I
So,
know
I remember kind of getting to that point, and I think we had already started some of these calls after that initial GI recommendation was made. I was like, yeah, I think it's good to go see GI, see what they have to say, about all this stuff. But, really being recommended to use the enemas and suppositories frequently because we were really trying to encourage Cora to completely empty so that way we could shrink the rectum back to its size. And it's something that we worked a lot through in our sessions. But I know that can be a super tough subject for any parent out there to utilize those things. So, like, can you share, with us how you felt about that approach to helping her overcome the constipation and like what was your initial reaction to, recommending enemas and suppositories? And did you find it to be a helpful part of the journey or difficult?
Yes. So I definitely felt reassured when you sort of like agreed that like, okay, well, we don't want to get dependent on Miralax, right? So like it wasn't until, we had been giving her the suppositories. Of course, that's like a whole meltdown situation. It's a whole, she hated them and then it was uncomfortable and the whole thing. But I feel like one of the positive things for us, but also frustrating, is that Cora's very smart.
Mm-hmm.
She knew what was happening, so you could reason with her. But then also it was frustrating because it's like, you're so smart. Why are you not just pooping? Right. And it wasn't that simple. Um, but I do feel like the suppositories were helpful and I felt more comfortable using those than the Miralax because I didn't want to get dependent on the Miralax to just do the work for her,
Yeah.
you
Well, and I
know?
think I think the biggest thing too was, kind of addressing all of the other stuff going on. Miralax can be really helpful if we're, making sure we're titrating it and its right doses and it's followed by the medical team, like consistently kind of following up with you guys to be like, hey, how is this dose working? Like when this happens,
Mhm.
what's supposed to come next? And I feel like that piece was kind of missed from your team a little bit,
Yes.
as well as the recommendations for fixing water intake and, her
That wasn't
diet.
like diet was never one of my biggest frustrations was no one said, have you tried this? Have you tried that? What does her diet look like? What's her water intake? And again, call me ignorant, but this is my first child. And you assume, like with food, right? If they're hungry, they're going to come tell you they're hungry. They're going to eat. But with
Mhm.
water, one of the first things you asked was like, is she getting this amount of water every day? And I'm like, no, I mean, she drinks when she's thirsty. Like she's a 3, 4 year old. Like she's drinking when she's thirsty. I didn't even occur to me that she needed to have like, and the amount of water that she needed was significantly more than what she was obviously getting versus
For
just like eating a little bit or drinking a little bit with each meal. Like she needed to be drinking all day
sure.
and that wasn't happening.
Well, and especially when kids are in daycare or school or with another caregiver, I mean, no one's really tracking. And how do you know what they're drinking?
I wasn't tracking it because it never occurred to me that it needed to happen that way.
Yeah.
Definitely all the exercising and to help her succeed, knowing that she just ate. So within 15 minutes, 20 minutes maybe, if we're being active and we're moving and like you would always say, like intentional activity, exercises and stuff, it will help promote that to happen. And then we can have it happen naturally versus like sit on the potty and try to poop, sit on the potty and try to poop. Like that's not helpful.
Yeah. Like we were trying to elicit that urge for her to get back and
Yes.
get the food moving through her system. And it was something that you guys did such a good job at was like finding unique new ways and consistently engaging in it. Obviously, there's days when you guys are on vacation or you have a change in your
Yeah.
normal routine and you can't implement those things. And, people are going to fall off and then get back on, when it comes to
Yeah.
those, overcoming constipation. Like we know it takes time. It wasn't, we didn't do one call and you guys were like,
No.
great, we've got this.
No,
We
it
work
was a
together.
full summer of a lot of work. We did no swimming because we couldn't because she was constantly pooping or trying not to poop, I guess.
Yeah.
And, it was a long summer. And I feel like, I was thinking back about this call. She still to this day will go and say, Mom, I pooped. And I'm like, okay, great. We're good. Like, I know a mental note that she just pooped. And I'll say, like, okay, was it okay? And she'll say, and if I can tell if she's needing more water, because she'll say, oh, it was a bunch of little ones. And I'm like, ooh, yeah, okay, we need to make sure we're drinking more water. And so I
Yeah.
think it's just something that most parents probably don't think they ever have to manage because naturally your kid will just poop and you don't have to ask them. But after that summer, I feel like we all have like trauma from it. And so we're still like in
Yeah.
poop mode.
You see, but every time she says it, you're like, okay, phew, like a breath
Yes.
of fresh air. Like you went to the bathroom today, like amazing.
Yes.
Nothing I have to worry about. Well,
Yes.
and I was thinking about the water intake too, and it was like you guys were doing all this Miralax, but how Miralax works is it pulls water from the body into the stool, and so kids, so much more quickly are getting dehydrated, and they need more water to help the Miralax actually work. So if you're
Yeah.
taking Miralax and not getting enough water, the Miralax can't do its job, and so I think that the water intake is such an important piece to all of this. And it's something that you guys were quickly like, okay, yeah, now, and we can recognize those things. And
Yeah.
I was like, one of the parts I loved most about our sessions was watching how involved Cora became over time. Like,
Yes.
talk about the poop Play-Dohs and like recognizing
Yes.
like different ones and the different yoga poses. And she would even get on our video calls sometimes and she wanted to see me and who I was and what I was recommending. And she's the one that deemed me, the poop doctor
You
from
were the
like,
poop doctor, unfortunately.
and I loved it. I was like, this is amazing. And just like, you would
Yeah.
send me those video or photo updates and just like watching her face be just like so excited about these little milestones and accomplishes she was making was huge because when we first met, she didn't want to talk about pooping. She was like so scared of it. And she started to learn and like advocate and become independent with the process herself and realize this is something I want to tackle too. It wasn't just, you and dad working on this.
No. And I definitely think, people would ask me, like, so is something wrong? And I guess, like, physically or medically, I don't think it started as something being wrong. I definitely think it started out as a mental fear, sensory issue, definitely. And I don't think that it was necessarily a fear as much as it was like definitely sensory driven because we found so many other sensory issues that we worked through. And it was almost like everything kind of resolved together. It wasn't just like, oh, she figured out how to poop, but she still has all the other issues. It was like it all kind of resolved itself together. And while I think it started as a mental thing, sensory thing for sure, it then did become sort of like a medical thing. Like you said, like you hold it for so long and then your body almost like adapts to the holding and it becomes a bigger issue. And I do think that, like with the Miralax, like things that you say, like the doctors will just say, like, put a cap full. Well, that's a huge dose. And
Yeah.
you have this itty bitty tiny skinny little 4-year-old who like doesn't need that much. We would do like I think it was like half a teaspoon or maybe a teaspoon, and that would do the trick. And then, like you said, we would need to get fully clean out and then start fresh. And so that's where I think Miralax can be helpful
Yeah.
without becoming dependent, because I do think it's important to do all those other things. And like you would say, listen, we have to like get her to recognize the feeling because we can't just assume that she knows the feeling. So let's recognize the feeling and then go from there.
Yeah. And I think, with the sensory, that was one thing was that, I think there was different things going on with how she was feeling it. Maybe it was overwhelming for her or she wasn't feeling it correctly or enough. But also with the constipation, when, she was ignoring it so much, her body was like, all right, we're not sending those signals anymore because you're just going to keep ignoring us. And so
Yes.
the
Yeah.
body was not correctly sending signals anymore either. And, a lot of people, the experts in this world talk about this constipation carousel. And once you get on, it is so hard to get off and stay off. And it just goes around and around. Like you think you're past it and then you're not. And you just
Yeah.
have to give it time and commit to the process. It's not going to happen, in a week, especially if it's something
For
your
sure.
child has been dealing with for 6 months, a year, 18 months,
Yeah.
whole life. There's babies, that have dealt with this since they started solids, and now they're
Right.
4 and their body
Yeah.
just has never learned, how to correctly void. And so that's when I think it's really important to find, a good team of people, if you feel like your specific medical team, like your pediatrician or whoever is not really giving you all these tips and tools, like especially pelvic floor. I know it's kind of hard to find pediatric pelvic floor therapists in person in a lot of towns and areas. But they can be really helpful and they, they're not just pelvic floor, especially for kids, is not like Kegels. They're helping you learn about your child's diet and water and
Right.
exercises and strengthening those, pelvic floor muscles that have either gotten tight or weak because they've been withholding for so long. So
Yeah.
there's so much to it. And, I think our journey was so powerful for you.
Down to like the brushing. We did the brushing. We did, like you mentioned, Play-Doh. We did exercise videos. We did intentional exercises, because another thing that I think most parents maybe don't realize is how, like, it doesn't always come natural. So you have to like help your child succeed, and by just yelling at them to poop and then they're not pooping is not setting them up for success. And so like the clothes were bothering her. The brushing helps so much, and I tell people all the time about that. Like, it seems silly, but when you're at rock bottom, and I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work. I'm like, I don't care. I'll do it. Like, we did it every single night. And then the hair just was no longer a problem. And the clothes, like, she still has some things now that are like, but in talking to you, it's like normal stuff. Like, I have those things. Like, we all have sensory things. And I remember you saying that, like, well, just because she has sensory things doesn't mean there's anything wrong with her. We all have them, but we're adults and we can handle them ourselves. Whereas as a kid, it becomes an inconvenience for an adult. And
Yeah.
so she still has little things, but nothing that's causing like insane meltdowns necessarily. So like the brushing helped, the
And you said it,
bubbles.
you explained the brushing and the sensory stuff beautifully, because it's one of those things that, as adults, and even kids, every kid has, we all have our 8 sensory systems and we all
Yeah.
respond differently to every single one. But like you said, when those things are causing those meltdowns and they're causing, disruption in your daily routines and toileting, that's when we find a solution. And for anyone listening, we're discussing sensory brushing. I highly recommend looking it up, or if your child is in therapy, especially occupational therapy or sensory-based therapy, bringing it up to them and seeing what they think about it, because it can be really helpful for, a plethora of things. And it's something that you're going to want to work with a professional before implementing. So just
Yeah,
want
it was great. Another
to.
thing that I felt like was super helpful. So like we mentioned, I had a brand new baby, and I had Cora, who you have the outside world saying like she should be potty trained. Like this, you have all this like almost judgment in a way, like you're not doing something right because like what's wrong with your kid? Why is she not pooping? Like, I don't want her to not be pooping. Like, I don't want to deal with this either. Like, this is frustrating for everyone involved. And I remember one of our first conversations, or maybe we had been working for a little bit and it was still kind of happening. We're doing all this stuff and I was struggling, probably postpartum more or less. And adding the poop was just making it 10 times worse, or the lack of poop. And I remember you saying, like, Katie, she's not old enough to be intentionally doing this.
Mhm.
So she's not like intentionally trying to make you mad. She's not intentionally making herself miserable to like make you mad. Like, she's not even old enough to make that decision to do that. And I thought like it was good to hear, and it really helped me work on my patience, because like she doesn't want this to happen either. And so I think it's very easy to say like they know what they're doing. Like, they're doing that on purpose to irritate you or to manipulate you. And um so the poop journey definitely helped in relation to like parenting as well. And
Yeah, I remember seeing that like switch flip for you when we had that conversation, being like, okay, you're right. Like, I've been getting frustrated with her when, this is really something that I just need to be helping support her. And then,
yeah.
from then on, we made so much more progress, because I think for every parent, there's that barrier of like, why won't they just do it? All the other kids
Yes.
are doing it. All the other parents are telling me like their
Yeah.
kid just did it, and so you're like, it's so easy to get frustrated. But then when you take a step back and like almost look at it, you're like, okay, I need to, help her. This is, more
Yes.
medical now. And, how can we get through this? And if it's, maybe it's not necessarily medical, but is it anxiety? Because that's still medical too. Like, what's going on with her and how can I help support her?
Yeah. And like so many, like the video, you had posted a video of her like blowing bubbles on the toilet, and so many people would comment and be like, that kid is a grown kid. Like, why are you posting her? And I thought like, well, well, yeah, you assume that everyone is just going to progress and just do what they're supposed to do, but it's no different than like, why is my kid maybe not reading as quick as the other kid? Like, there's all these different categories that everyone's going at their own pace. And I thought, like, no 4-year-old who wants to have to go swimming with a pull up on because they're not pooping. Like, this is not, a choice by me, her dad, or her. We're all worth doing our best.
Seriously. And I like, oh, I remember posting that and I sent you a message. I'm like, do you want me to take this down? Because I was getting
No.
so frustrated with all of the little like keyboard warriors on the other side of the
Yeah.
internet that were trying to like make a stand and make a point that they could do it better. They potty trained their 6 kids this way. And
Yeah.
I like made such a stand. I made sure I was like watching my comments every day, commenting back to every single person. And
Yes.
it was really great watching all of the people like, and even still to this day, I mean, it's been like a year since I think I posted that first one. Still to this day, I get people liking my response comments back to those people. Like they
Aw.
have thousands of likes because, all of those families out there that are in the same position as you guys were and are needing just a little bit of support, helping their child release on the toilet. They're like, thank gosh, this little video. It's like just
In the video, like that technique was so helpful. And so like when she was blowing bubbles, like you could, like for a child who just poops, you're not talking to them about the feeling down there and the correlation between like blowing the bubbles and how do you feel down there. And that was a very good technique to be able to explain to her. And like I said, she's so smart, like she got it, like it was easy to show the example and her be like, yeah, I feel it. And it was very helpful. And I think there was one time when we did the bubble situation that it activated a poop for her and we were like, oh my gosh, it worked.
I know. I still remember getting that text message, and we were like, I was running around my house. You guys were running around your house. You're like, what kind of prize do we need to buy? Like, do we
I
need a
know.
bike? Like, we're so excited for
We
you.
did. We did the bike and that was super helpful. And I think when you get stuck in the tunnel of doom, which is what we were in, if you start getting like the threat parenting where like that's not helping anyone, we have to be like pumped. Like let's celebrate and let's be supportive and let's be positive. And I don't want her to feel nervous on top of it. And you had said like, okay, well, let's try buying the bike and put it somewhere where she can see it because it's very a lot of parents you promise these things but then they don't physically see it so it's really not real to the child.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, yeah, duh, like she just had to look at it. And then I remember sending you the video of her on the bike in her underwear because she
You're like, yes. Well, and I think like the big thing for that was like, we weren't necessarily rewarding her for like overcoming this like medical thing. Like it wasn't like, okay, if you poop, you get this bike, but it was like
yeah,
if like start to be an active participant, like let's find ways to get
yes,
her
yes,
motivated to actually even engage in it because she was so like it just was not tangible. She did not want, she didn't care, she was like, I'll just
she
go my
didn't.
ups, like it's fine.
Yeah,
Then that like was like a buy-in for her. And like, sometimes that doesn't work for kids, but for her, you were like, yes, I know this is going to work. And she's going to be like so proud of herself. And, it's those things that like goal trackers and things are like huge even for
yes,
adults of like, okay, let's give myself like these little things and I can work towards this, motivation and excitement of reaching my goals. And so it was just something for her to be excited about. And I think
yes,
you ended up giving it to her like as soon as we kind of got started in the process and she was like consistently like sitting and blowing
and
bubbles and trying, she was like, all right, now we get,
yes,
and then the bike ended up being a thing for her to exercise to help make herself.
yes,
So it like was like a double combined.
yes. Yeah, and I remember like when we were really doing exercise stuff, so we have a treadmill here and we had her on the treadmill in her underwear and she thought it was cool. Like, we're beefing this up like it's this awesome thing. Like we have to do these. We have to move our bodies to tell our bodies it's time to release and we have to clean out. And I remember, oh my gosh, she was on the treadmill in her underwear, of course, and a t-shirt. And I have a video still on my phone. And Eric came out and was like, what happened out here? The whole garage stunk so bad because she had been on the treadmill and it made her poop. And she was like, I pooped. And we were like, okay, well, if we have to put you on the treadmill every day, then I guess that's what we'll do. We just had to like activate her body to keep her moving, and then she'd poop. It was like magic.
It was hilarious. And you guys are just so good at finding different ways. And she was so like excited. But like we said, like
She was pumped.
this was not, she was not pumped from day one. And so this was stuff that
Yes.
you guys like took time going into. So it's so fun to like look back and remember like, okay, yeah, it took time, but you guys got there. And this
Yes.
journey that we had was not just about potty training. Like
No, and
we
we
also we also
so many
tackled,
things.
yeah, those sleep regressions with your newborn that was also happening
Yes.
at the same time as the constipation. Like, I mean, the fact that you tackled all of this at the same time is
I look back and like it's like a dark hole, like just the worst summer, but like, it's true, like nothing's gonna last forever. So yes, I often wonder, do you think that like she would have just ended up pooping like everyone said, like she'll get it when she's ready?
I don't
But like,
know.
was that beneficial for her to like not do these things to help her? And I do think it helped her in such a confidence way. Like we were teaching her to like be in tune with her body, to be confident that she accomplished this through working really hard. It didn't just like, I don't know, just happen. And I feel like it really helped her confidence boost. Still to this day, I will tell you though, still to this day, she will use suppository as a fear tactic for things. Like this is silly, but one time we were talking about like robbers or something. She was like, "Yeah," and they would get a suppository. I'm like now it's like her form of self-defense. Like it's like a weapon. She cannot stand the suppositories, and every once in a while, like after her bath or something, I'll be putting lotion on, and she'll say, "Do you remember when you used to give me those things, those suppositories?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Those were awful." I'm like, "I know they were awful for everyone." Like, I will
I,
never forget them either. I know you're traumatized.
oh my gosh, wait. That is actually the funniest thing I've ever heard, that a suppository is her weapon of choice. And
Yes.
I'm going to use
Like
that.
punishment. Like it's a punishment to anyone,
You
like
come in my house,
forced to get a
suppository.
suppository. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's never gonna forget it. Like, and I would
That
say to my mom all the time, like, I fear that she's gonna grow up and remember, I don't know, just how terrible it was. And I do think that that is like, it might sound silly, but finding you saved that for her. It wasn't me just like being angry and being hateful and being frustrated and being overstimulated. It was work that we did together that she accomplished on her own, and it was a much more positive experience for everyone. I remember being in Florida, so we had been working together from like, I think we started June 1st, and then we were in Florida in September, and I texted you from Florida, and she took herself to the toilet and pooped, and Eric and I were like, don't say anything, don't say anything, don't say anything. Like we didn't know if it was like a fluke. And ever since then she just started like pooping, and we were like, oh my gosh. So now every time we go to Florida in September, it's like our poop anniversary.
Oh my gosh. I remember getting that text and I was like, I was like almost in tears over it, because I was like, I'm just so excited for
I
you.
know.
And it was
I
like,
know.
just looking back on the whole journey, I was like, oh my gosh, like finally, like it clicked for her. And like I had kept saying, like, just stay with it. Just, I know this process is
Yes.
long, but like, don't give up on it. Like, even though you
Yes.
have all of this like noise from outside people as well, like, what's right. I encourage you to stop using Google so much. And like, if you had
Yes.
questions, to
Like,
like
stop looking on Google. Just text me. I'm like, you're
yes,
right. I need to
text
stop.
me, email me, like ask me. And if I don't know the answer, I'll like put it in one of my Facebook groups of like, other
Yes.
professionals, and like try to get actual like knowledge to you guys.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
like you said, help with Elsie. I think it really boils down to lack of support from doctors, like genuine support, maybe
Yeah.
genuine um trial and error, genuine just suggestions, instead of just like give her Miralax, she'll be fine. Like,
Yeah.
one of the doctors said, I mean, my daughter's 17, and like we know that certain situations, like we're giving her Miralax, and I'm like, but I don't want to do that. Like, I want her to feel like we've overcome this. I don't want it to be a lifelong struggle for her.
Yeah. And I think, I think it's a systematic, issue and error and, overwhelm of our healthcare system and providers and insurance. I mean, there's probably a
Yeah.
million different reasons and angles of why the care is not there like it should be. But it doesn't make it okay. And it's really frustrating, that,
Right.
that one person is supposed to be kind of your go-to, and they're supposed to be there to like listen to you and make recommendations if they don't have the right piece of advice or knowledge, be like, okay, maybe go see this person, or, I'll try to find the answers for you and send you an email. It's just, I've, even as an adult and a woman, I always have questions, and I always feel like almost like a burden sometimes.
No, and I feel like truly you put so much work into it, time, conversations, research, emails, all of it. And we had one virtual doctor appointment with the doctor for her to tell me that her daughter still at 17 takes Miralax and to give her watermelon. And then we got billed for insurance and third, not even, I think it was like 20 minutes of us being on virtual or whatever. And I was like, thanks. Thank you so much. I'll make sure I give her watermelon. Like,
I know it's so frustrating, but I'm so happy that you found me and that we have now, built this.
I
like
know.
time.
And who would have thought that TikTok
Right?
would have brought us together, and you saved us, all of us.
I know. And now I like love, we were just chatting before we got on, like all about, how Cora's in kindergarten and thriving and, exceeding milestones and all that thing. So it's so great to keep up with all the families that I work with. But looking back on that entire experience, from the pool parties that you guys inevitably had to miss, to those like moments of doubt that were constantly creeping in, and then, eventually leading up to all of those small and big wins that you guys really began to experience over time, what are some of the biggest takeaways for you as a parent going through this that you want to share? Anyone listening?
I feel like you mentioned about being a woman and having lots of questions, I feel like advocating for your child, it's okay if they're struggling. And I feel like I would have done her an injustice by like just listening to the doctors, or maybe listening to everyone else and just being like, well, it'll happen when it happens, and I think like advocating for your child for sure. Maybe going a non-traditional route, is also okay. And honestly, I found it to be way more beneficial for everyone in so many different aspects. And knowing, I also feel that parenting is not just black and white. And you taught me so much about like how a child's mind is working in the situation and how to get on her level on so many things. And my patience, working on my patience. But I feel like you helped us in so many other ways than just the poop. Like, I feel like I could cry talking about it, but parenting for sure, because it's not easy. It's very easy to get frustrated, and like your child wants to do better, they want to do it, but you just have to get in their level and figure out how to make it happen for them.
Yeah, that's amazing advice. And, I know there's going to be so many parents out there that are listening to that and just,
I hope so,
a breath of fresh air. So,
and it won't last forever, and you will survive, and your child will poop. You just have to work really hard and do all the things with them. And I think too, being involved, makes a huge difference. And like, we would do the exercises together, and we were all invested in it. And I think that really helps so much. And of all the things that you taught us, and I have all of our emails saved. If I don't potty train Elsie right, it is operator error. We will know with Elsie if I am the problem.
I was just going to say, I bet you Cora is going to be like the best teacher, potty trainer for Elsie, because she's going to be like, oh, I got this. I know how to do. This is fun. Oh, that poop, nope, that's not what we want. We need more water, mom. She's
Yes.
on it because she knows.
Yes, we always joke that Elsie better be the quickest, best pooper and peer ever because we have all the tips and tools. We have no excuse for it to not go smooth. So hopefully, knock on wood, it's an easy experience with Elsie.
Well, you know where to find me if it
Yes.
is not. Well,
Yes.
Katie, thank you so much for joining and sharing your journey.
Thank you for everything.
Oh, well,
For everything.
I love you and your family, and
We love you more.
it's just
Our favorite poop doctor and friend.
it's amazing. And,
Yes.
you really are just such an incredible parent, and I need you, to know
Thank
that.
you.
And, it all came down to you doing the work at the end of the day. Anyone can, take this advice or watch the videos or read the books or whatever, but it really takes daily effort from,
Yeah.
the caregiver to, get these outcomes. So it really, came down to you and to your family. And so I just know so many parents are going to take these little nuggets of wisdom with them.
I hope so.
Their own journey.
I hope so.
Well, for everyone listening, if you are currently struggling with potty training or dealing with constipation and just needing a little bit of guidance on navigating everything, I am here to help you. So you can book a consult with me at the link in the show notes. I'll leave a little link to our one-on-one calls and any of my other resources that I have down there. But just, remember you're not alone on this journey, and I am here to help you through these challenges. So thank you again for being here, Katie.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. And thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Pediatric Playbook. See you next time.
I hope you enjoyed this week's conversation and found it helpful as you navigate along this journey, whether that's supporting kids, growing as a therapist, or both. If you're looking for more resources, tips, or support, be sure to check out my website linked in the show notes and connect with me on social media at Your Pediatric OT on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, or wherever else you can find me. You'll find everything from free guides to in-depth courses designed to help you make an even bigger impact. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Pediatric Playbook. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend or colleague who'd love it too. I can't wait to see you next time, same place, same time, right here on the Pediatric Playbook.